Let me just get to the point here. This isn't going to be the greatest video. Heck, I might not look back on it as a good video at all. That's mainly because it's my first one, so I'm not going to keep you watching too long in case I end up hating it. I know you probably already read the title, but in this video, I'm going to be talking about some of my favorite tower defense games and what makes them enjoyable. Specifically, I'll be talking about their aesthetic, the amount of content in them, and the story. Basically, I'll just be going through these different qualities that I think tower defense games should have, and ranking each game on the quality with a score out of 10. Since I'm not going to go through every tower defense game on Roblox, I'll just be including Tower Heroes, Flavor Frenzy, Tower Defense Simulator, and Tower Defense X. And yes, I said on Roblox. So if you're a Bloons fan, or one of the 3 people on Earth who enjoys look at tower defense, then sorry. Now, let's get started with the aesthetic. Out of all the categories, aesthetic is going to be the hardest to rank because all the tower defense games I'll be talking about look pretty good. I've noticed there are 2 main art styles in these games, one being more cartoony and the other looking more like Roblox players. I personally like the cartoony style better, but that's just my opinion. Tower Heroes and Flavor Frenzy are the 2 cartoony looking games, and I'm going to have to give Flavor Frenzy the slight edge because the characters there are more shaded and just more detailed in general. However, this does not mean Tower Heroes should change anything. The difference makes these games unique from each other, and if they weren't unique, they would feel boring and samey, which aren't good qualities. I'm just clarifying in case any of you watching want to make or are making a Roblox game. Anyways, Tower Heroes gets an 8 and Flavor Frenzy gets a 9. Now the other 2 games, Tower Defense Simulator and Tower Defense X. TDS is a little generic, so it'll get a 6. TDX is definitely more polished, so it gets to rank higher at 8. Another thing, the fact that Tower Defense Simulator is generic is not bad. It's always good to have a baseline, and TDS, being the first game made out of these 4, serves as that baseline, and it does its job great too. Next up is the content, and there's a major difference in content between the games, unlike aesthetic. By content, I just mean the amount of things to do in each game. The reason this is important is so that players don't complete everything and then have nothing really to do. I feel like Tower Heroes easily beats all of these games in terms of content. To 100% Tower Heroes, not only do you have to complete every map on easy, medium, and hard mode and get all the heroes, but you also have to collect all the skins and stickers, buy and unlock every modifier, and unlock every enemy follower, which requires you to go back to every map and play them each many other times. That's not even everything Tower Heroes has for players to do. For example, they have seasonal events every year, like Christmas 2023. I think it's obvious at this point with the way I've been praising this game, Tower Heroes is getting a 9 out of 10 on content. Flavor Frenzy takes a big step down from the amount of content Tower Heroes has. They have a good amount of bears right now, and I assume they'll add more maps in the future, but there are no modes or enemy followers, not that Flavor Frenzy needs to have enemy followers. They did add quests recently, but for now, this is still just a 6 out of 10. Tower Defense Simulator has over 60 maps to play on, each with 3 modes and has over 40 towers, so this is going to get an 8. Even with not many maps yet, Tower Defense X is a whole 5 modes, meaning each map has to be played 5 times. There are also some achievements, which don't look that bad at first, until you realize that you have to play 1,000 rounds and play the game for an entire year. TDX gets a 9 for content. Lastly comes the game's story. Because story elements aren't required to make a tower defense game, I'll only be giving a score out of 5 for the story. You might be wondering how any of these games besides Flavor Frenzy have a story, but each of these games have story elements. First up is Tower Heroes, and besides some dialogue from Jester, Tutoro, Icebrain, and other event characters, there doesn't seem to be much at first. That's until you take enemy followers into consideration. I mentioned in the content section how they heavily increase the amount of time Tower Heroes takes to 100%, but they also contain bios which give players a lot of lore. As a quick example, Branch is the last of his kind, and the Void Reaper is either immortal or just really old. Piecing all of these bios together, we can uncover so much that I think Tower Heroes deserves a 4 out of 5. Tower Defense Simulator and Tower Defense X are similar in story, so I'll cover them together. There isn't much besides the events and the fact that some sort of commander speaks to you in both games, but these are still pretty solid. There isn't much story in other parts of these games though, so they both get a 2. Finally, Flavor Frenzy. If you've played it before, you know it has a story mode. Even though it's unfinished, this is an instant 5 out of 5. The plot so far is really good, with the bears trying to help each other from the infection. The fact that there is an entire mode for the story is the main reason Flavor Frenzy gets a score this high. But the other games should never get a story mode. They have their own ways of getting across the story, and they work, so they should be kept. I especially mean this about Tower Heroes. Getting to find out the lore yourself from looking through the bios is so fun, and lets players think of their own storylines. Well, I've added up the scores, and it's time to rank the games. Coming in at 4th place, we have Tower Defense Simulator, with 16 out of 25. As I mentioned before, this game serves as more of a baseline, so it wasn't going to be number 1. Even with a high amount of content, Tower Defense Simulator is a little generic in most aspects, taking the game down quite a bit. Keep in mind that all these games are enjoyable, no matter where they are in the ranking. Next, at 3rd place, we have Tower Defense X, with 19 out of 25. This game edges out Tower Defense Simulator in most of its aspects. Overall, it feels like a more polished version of TDS, doing what it did, but better. This game didn't come out very long ago, so I'll love seeing how it grows and develops over time. It was close, but the runner-up spot goes to Flavor Frenzy, with 20 out of 25. The main thing in bringing it down is its lack of content, but it's great other than that. The visuals and the story of Flavor Frenzy are amazing, making it a fun tower defense game to try out. If you've been paying attention, this means that the number 1 spot goes to Tower Heroes, with 21 out of 25. From its high amount of content, to its great art style, to its abundant lore, Tower Heroes does so much right, it was hard not to give it number 1. Out of these 4, Tower Heroes was the second one of these games I played, and it will always be my favorite because of everything I've talked about. Well, thanks for watching my first video. If you have any other opinions on which tower defense game you think is the best, share it in the comments if you like. I'd love to hear other thoughts. If you liked the video, liking and subscribing would mean a lot to me, but it's not something you have to do. Watching my videos is already so much support, and I'm grateful. I'm already thinking ahead about my next video, and I'm considering making one diving into the lore of Tower Heroes. But again, you can let me know in the comments what you'd like to see. Again, thanks for watching, and goodbye.